Namaste. It's a very unusual way that I just felt like giving my thoughts within a concrete form of this kind of a presentation. I started this stream where I will be giving the ideas that what I felt. That's why the title also I said that the way that I feel about the creation, about mankind. So let me try to bring in this idea the way that I read it, I understood about it. Probably I may be able to continue this every Friday morning at 11 o'clock, starting from today, so that there is a continuation expected, and you can find it in the YouTube channel. And so the thought came because of I've been listening a lot about Islam, Christianity, and various experiences that they had, and also about our Indian culture, the way right from the beginning, the way that I heard various people did meditation, whether it is Rama meditated on Shiva that we talk about, or the Ravan and Indrajit, they also meditated, they also special power. So it looks like it's a huge area, that there is something which is not just only the manifest world, but then behind that, there is a huge lot of unmanifest world, and that is there about. And recently also that there is one more thing that happened was our dear Venkatram, he left us because of COVID and complications and all that. And then we were listening to various expressions of the Pandits who are giving us what is the journey that soul takes up. And a lot of these ideas seem to be very non-verifiable kind of a thing in that area. Then I had my own doubts about all those non-verifiable things. For example, that there are gods and there are demigods and there are various levels of angels, etc. All these things are referred to not only in this culture, but in various cultures that has been referred. So when I accepted the facts that are there in this culture, we also accept the culture, the aspects that are there in the other cultures also, equally valid. And I was looking at that point of time, various mythologies, whether it is Greek or Mesopotamian or Roman. Every country, every culture has mythology, and there are so many characters that were there in the mythology and doing various activities that people have talked about in that. And from that only that there are a lot of names that has come today, like for example that what we talk about, the idea of Olympics, it's from one of the mythological figures. Like that, we have several things which are from the various world mythology that has come. And when we come to Indian side mythology, that there are so many characters, so many gods are there. Ganesha, and recently we had a beautiful function, very lively function of the teacher of teachers, and that's what is Dakshinamurti. It was something which is wonderful, and we call it as Yoga Dakshinamurti, because in the yoga center that we created that kind of a thing. So it looks like very vibrant about all these things that are there. Now, with all these things that are present in the culture, and the way that our people have expressed various things, that I would like to try to bring about into a fold of understanding all these things, and trying to eliminate the mystic aspect of it as much as possible. In one sense, that if we do not eliminate that mystic aspect, if you say that yes, it is like this, then we may have to accept from various other cultures also whatever that they say is something which is real, or which is something which is accepted, kind of a thing. So, but the way that I look at Indian philosophy, a lot of times Indian philosophy has presented, or Sanatana Dharma presented various things very systematically, logically, and whatever that is there, which falls beyond the logic, they presented it very nicely, and they did not want to create any confusion at that level. Because of that reason only, that we have variety of gods and variety of faiths, variety of people who are there, and practices also like that. Now, of all these things, one thing that is very clear about is that the human being is something who is extraordinary in the whole creation. Or, in other words, I would like to say that, as our scripture said again, as the Sanatana Dharma said it, that of all the species that are there, millions of species that are there is on this earth, or maybe outside this planet also, human being is the most important, extraordinary, wonderful species. That's why we said that Manushyanam, Naranam, Narajanma Durlabhataram. That means to say that it's very difficult in this creation to become a human being. Why this idea has come? It is not an egoistic statement that human being is better than all the other species. Not a attempt to do that. And there is nothing that we get by saying that. Like, for example, I go in front of my own cat, my own dog, or my own cat and say that, look, I'm better than you. It doesn't make any sense to them. So when we say that human being is somebody extraordinary creation of all the other species that are there, that means to say it is for the sake of two reasons. One is that it must be responsibility, and another thing is it gives a opportunity for us to now pursue more than what the other species can do it. Other species also live. Like, for example, a dog is born and dog lives as a dog. And it may be a dog in a rich family, it may be a dog in a poor family, or the street dog, a dog in the forest or a dog in the house. It's one and the same thing. The dog is a dog. It has these things, like, for example, food, sleep. These are things it looks. And about the sex, it looks for the sex. If it is not available, it doesn't mind that way, because many dogs do not have that opportunity to go for sex. Street dogs, that yes, they do it. Or forest dogs, they can have. So like that, and then they live for 80, 100 years, I mean, 13, 14 years, 15 years. A forest dog also lives like that, and the house dog also lives like that. Many times we say that, yes, by bringing the forest dog into the house, that we have clipped the wings of this particular dog. That means to say what forest dog can do it. Our home dog cannot do it. Like forest, you can see that the dogs, they can even chase away a tiger or a lion. But our home house dog, the moment he sees the mouse, it feels jittery, feels difficult. Well, basically, it is adapted to the circumstances that you put this dog in. And the forest dogs, they are adjusted to the circumstances that they're around. One thing that I've seen is that, this chicken in the forest, oh, the way that they fly, because they're birds and then they have wings, and they have constant opportunity for them to fly in the forest. So they fly. You can't even imagine the chicken at home can do that, because the way that the chicken that is there in our poultry, etc., their abilities are not actually um, enhanced. But then that's what they are. So like that. But then what happens is that small little simple things that you can make them to do it. A dog can just, give you a shake hand, give you this, give you that. That's the only thing. But look at the human being. He's extraordinary. It's not the question of one human being or the other I'm taking about. As a race, that when you look at human being, there's an ability to do something which is much more than all the other species can do it. But even though that human being lacks compared to the others, many of the other species, like the way man cannot run like either a horse or a leopard. Oh, They have such a beautiful way that they run, and then they can do so many things which human being cannot do it. He cannot himself fly like the bird can fly. His, when you look at that way, that his inability, his teeth are not like the way that the other species teeth, which are so strong. In fact, there is a very funny story about that human being. A tiger was telling his cub, her cub, that if you are walking around in the if you are going around in the forest, you might see the species. When there was a man who was going, says you might see the species. Don't try to eat his meat. Don't try to kill him and eat his meat. Why? Because he must be a really stupid fellow. Because he has, like us, that two hands and two legs are there, and all those things. That means there are four legs. Look at the monkey. Monkey can at least jump from tree to tree and then use all the four limbs and all that. Man doesn't use all the limbs. He walks only on two legs, and the other two is just moving around. Though they're trained to see that these other two limbs also work along with the legs, but then he doesn't use that. So therefore, he must be stupid, and then his intelligence will come to you if he eats his meat. But actually, this is like a story, and that's another ability of human being. Only human being can create all these stories. So therefore, that when we look at it, human being is weakling in the whole creation. But in spite of it, why he consider him to be extraordinary? The simple reason that human being, when we say that it is extraordinary creation, it's not an egoistic statement, but more or less the way that Indian philosophy looks at it is that because you have certain abilities which others do not have it, other species do not have it, it becomes an added responsibility for you to protect all the other species. It is to see that how you protect, how you organize all of them, and coexistence as the way that you can really look at it. It's not an egoistic statement, but it's a statement of responsibility. So, in what way that human being is extraordinary in this way? The normal perception is that human being has intelligence, which the others do not have it. Yeah, the others have intelligence only at their own level, but then human being is somebody who has intelligence much more than all that they other animals or other species put together, whatever that is there. That's the reason why his intelligence allows him to create a flying machine that he can fly like birds. And intelligence creates a kind of a submarine that he moves under the water like the way a fish or a big fish, like a whale and all that, they can move like that. Human being also can move under the water. He can climb up on the hills like the way that he can scale Himalayas. So all these are possibilities with the human being because that one instrument that he has, that's what is intelligence. So intelligence is something which is very important in the human being. But then apart from that intelligence, this is where the rest of the world, philosophers or thinkers, stop at that level. But Indian philosophy says it is not that alone that human being is somebody extraordinary, but beyond that, whatever that you call it as, that he is the consciousness himself, and he is aware that he is consciousness. Others also do have consciousness. That human being is the only species who is not only consciousness, but is also aware of consciousness. This is something which is very extraordinary, but then it needs to be explained, understood about the whole thing. So let me give you a very simple idea that how the Indian philosophy, the Sanatana Dharma, looks at the way that the creation has taken place. Essentially, there are two models for the creation. And one model of creation is that first that there were supposed to be energy and the gases or whatever it is, and then that solidified and became matter. And that's what is basically all these planets are created. Whatever that is supposed to be there in the form of spread everywhere, the consciousness is supposed to be the energy, gathered together to become what is called as sun, what is called as various other suns. And then from there, a small little chunk came out, several chunks came out and then solidified. going round and round the same sun. Why do they go round? Probably because of that they're caught up in that speed. You don't know whatever it is. But then it slowly cool down, otherwise the temperatures are very heavy. Cool down to such a way that when it is cooled down, then at particular temperature, water can stay there on that. Otherwise, water gets evaporated. And when the water is there, then other species have come into being. Existence has started. And when the existence has started, various other species are there. And finally, the human being who came to be. So this is how one theory of creation, that it's the energy which is there basically, and energy became matter. So energy and matter are together, and then from there evolved what's called as species, and which is supposed to be consciousness. So plants have consciousness, animals have consciousness, human beings have consciousness. So these are all later development from the matter. This is one worldview, people have it. But another worldview, that's what is the Sanatana Dharma gives us. To start with, it was consciousness which is there everywhere. And that consciousness itself has become individual consciousness, and from individual consciousness, all these other things are developed. That means to say, it is the consciousness which has become the earth, the consciousness has become the water, the consciousness has become the air. And the same way, the consciousness has become the life principle, prana. And from there, various other species have come into existence, and that's what is the fish, whether it is a bird, or the animals. And then from the consciousness, it is the human being who is evolved. But there is no question of hierarchical way of developing all these things, that they simultaneously they developed all these things. It's not like the way that somebody is sitting there and with a magic wand he created various species. Monday he created certain things, Tuesday he created certain things, Wednesday he followed by doing something else, Thursday, Friday, like that he created about 6 days. Seventh day he rested because naturally he did all that work. So this is some of the mythological worldviews that we have. But then the way that Indian philosophy or the Sanatana Dharma looks at is that you are the consciousness, and consciousness become an individual consciousness, and that is what we call it as jiva. So this jiva individual then started working on its own to see that it becomes like matter. So matter is a later position and the consciousness is earlier position. And most important thing is, though this is true in case of all the other species, human being is the only species that who also has matter, who also is matter, but he is also consciousness inside. So both these things are available with him. This is what is the unique thing about it. And he is conscious of that consciousness. That's what we call it as prajna, awareness. Other species do not have that. Like for example, that the consciousness has become energy. And energy level, there is nothing like conscious of that energy. It just became consciousness, that's energy, that's all. It became water, it became fire, it became earth. It is same consciousness which will become that, but then they are not aware of it. Earth behaves like earth, water behaves like water. The other species also are there, but then they are slightly better than these things because that they have not only the physical body, gross physical body, but apart from that, they also have life. The plant has life, animals have life, the marine species have life, even a small little virus has life in that. So therefore, what we call it as life living. What is the definition, why they call, what is the difference of life? The way that they said, it is closer to manifested consciousness, because basically where the life is there, where the prana is there, it multiplies. It has got a self-proliferation property that is there. Like for example, a matter that is there, a stone is there, it doesn't increase by itself. It does not decrease by itself. It can pulverize the whole thing. But by itself, it cannot increase or decrease. Swayameva penatam yati, swayameva tanam. Only the plant has it. There is life. Plant means basically there is life. That's why today you have a small little plant with 4 leaves, and 1 week later it has 4 branches, and then 10 leaves that are there. So that means to say it can multiply, it can grow. And that's something which is responsible for the species maintenance, recognition and species maintenance and all that. So therefore, that these other aspects of creation have not just only the physical body, but they also have what is called as the slightly better form of consciousness than the physical body, and that's what is called as life. Plants have life, animals have life, self-growing property. But then there is another unique thing that our Sanatana Dharma suggests, and that is only life can support life, in the sense that life in me is supported by the life outside, and then outside life is supported by the life within me. So it is like that. It's a life cycle that's going on. So this is how essentially that we have what is called as life. But human being is much better than all these other species like animals and birds and plants and all those things. In what sense? Because at one point, at one end, he is the physical body, but deep inside, he is the consciousness. And that's what is the beautiful discussion that goes on in the form of Taittiriya, Panchakosha Viveka in Taittiriya Upanishad. One of the very satisfying discussions between the student and teacher. And the way that it goes on, this discussion goes on, is in the form of dialogue between the student and teacher. And the knowledge, it does not come just like somebody passes on that knowledge to somebody else. Though there is a teacher there is a student there. Bhrigu is the teacher, Varuna is the teacher, and Bhrigu is the student. But normally what we think is the teacher gives the student the knowledge, and therefore the knowledge grows. It doesn't happen that way. It happens in a different way. The knowledge, it does not come from the teacher, but the knowledge comes from your own experience. The teacher only gives an idea that, come on, you go and find out for yourself. Tapasa brahma vijñāsasva. And the student looks into himself, looks into his own experience, and he has to bring out his own experience, the truth. So therefore, basically, when the student goes to teacher and asks, he doesn't even ask the question that who am I? He asks the question that what's the origin of creation? Yato va imani bhutani jayante yena jatani jivanti. Where from this creation has come? That's how the discussion goes on, where the teacher suggests to the student, look into yourself and find out where from all this thing happens, or what is that which exists. It exerts its influence on the others. What makes what to do. See, like for example, that the leader, the top is the one who makes the others to do it. So therefore, it is taken this model of looking at, you find out for yourself, who are you who is doing these activities. Try to find out within yourself who you are. Of course, Adi Shankaracharya picks up this question saying that he's asking about the origin of creation, and you are talking about look into yourself. How does it match? Shankara's very simple answer for that is that you are also part of this creation. You always is the part of the creation. You are the part of the creation. You can't separate yourself from the creation. So understand the creation is like understanding yourself. So our understanding yourself is like understanding the creation. Creation you can't understand so as much as that you understand yourself for two reasons. One is creation is so vast. In various senses, creation is vast. Like, for example, the extent wise, creation is so huge, and you are so very tiny being in this creation. And if you want to understand that whole creation, you should be bigger than the creation to understand the creation. But then you are not like that. That's one reason. Second reason is that you want to understand the creation, you use your senses. Senses are the abilities to understand what is there in the world outside, but the senses are also limiting you from knowing the fact completely. Like, for example, the eyes can see the things not because the eyes have a capacity to see, but eyes limit the process of seeing. That's the reason why we have all these various instruments to see that you enhance the property to see by telescope, microscopes, etc., etc. Your naked eye cannot see the Wuhan virus, coronavirus, but then through the microscope, when you look at it, electron microscope, then you see the virus. That means you have enhanced the ability of your eyes to see. So the world outside that you use, still the senses, without the senses, you cannot understand the world outside. You have seen the virus. How did you say that? Yes, through the microscope, but I have seen it. That person who is behind that seeing is there. But whereas the senses are used to know the world outside. Whereas when you look into yourself, you don't need senses. You understand yourself, you close your eyes, still that you know that you are there. Still you know that you are depressed. Still you know that you have fear. So various internal aspects that you understand about yourself without the senses. In fact, senses are very, very small little area of your operation. There's huge operation that's going on inside, minus the senses. So therefore, how do we know that? It's by looking inwards. That's the reason why this teacher, Upanishad teacher, says to the student, Varuna says to Bhrigu, look into yourself. And that looking into oneself is what is called as tapas. Why is it called as tapas? Tapa means heat. But then there is a very beautiful way that this word of tapas is used here. Like, for example, firewood, we call it as firewood because it helps the fire. It has the fire within, and that fire manifests outside so that the firewood creates the fire, burns the fire. But when you touch the firewood, it's cold. That means to say inside it has the tapa, the heat, but from outside it cannot manifest. And in fact, you need to see that you are able to bring it out. So this firewood, you try to dry it up and then you put it in the fire, so that once you put that into the fire, then the inner fire inside the firewood manifests outside. It helps that. Same way that you have inside your ability to create all these things that are there, and you need to bring it out. So that whatever that truth that is there inside, hidden, in the normal perception that it is not available, you'll be able to perceive that. Like, for example, unless until this Upanishad suggested a simple truth that is there in front of us, we will not be knowing about it, we would not have thought about it. That is, your hands are there, legs are there, eyes are there, ears are there. Physical body is there very much, which we identify ourselves with. We are the physical body. And that physical body, Annamaya Kosha. The student comes back to the teacher and says that I am this physical body, Annamaya Kosha. And like the way that I have this Annamaya Kosha, the whole creation also has this Annamaya Kosha. But then the teacher says, do tapas, find out further. That means try to unravel, unearth whatever that is there hidden. And the simple thing is, my hand does not move without the prana, my legs do not move without the prana. Prana has to be there behind all these activities. I am speaking, not because that I have my mouth, but there is prana behind it. I'm seeing not because the eyes are there, but there is prana behind it. So when you look at it, outside body is just only a periphery, but then deep inside, what is using this whole body is prana. So therefore, we are deeper than the physical body in the form of pranamaya kosha, prana personality. In this fashion, in this manner, when the teacher goes further and further, and it comes to the idea that I'm just not only a physical body, but I'm this prana, but not only prana, physical body and prana. Behind that, I am. And who is that I am? And I am that mind, manomaya kosha. And behind this manomaya kosha, I am the vijnanamaya kosha. We roughly translate that into English in the form of mental personality and intellectual personality. But Upanishad means much more deeper these ideas of Vijnanamaya Kosha. And behind all this Vijnanamaya Kosha, we are the bliss, consciousness, personality. That's what is Anandamaya Kosha. Our own nature is bliss, our own nature is Ananda. And it is, I'm doing an activity, that means to say it is this bliss which is doing an activity. Only thing is that our own experience is that. The experience shows that I do every activity because by doing that activity, I'm happy. It's a happiness which is guiding me to do all the activities. The driving force behind every activity is nothing but this Ananda. And that Ananda is also called as Sukha. It's a very beautiful Sanskrit word that we have. Sukha is that where Kam means Akasha. Sukham, that Akasha which is having the freedom, which does not have any restrictions, which does not have any bondages, and that's what is Sukham. And then on the opposite of it, Dukkham, that means the number of bondages that you create. So therefore, they said that deep inside that you are the Ananda, but deep inside that you are the freedom also. That's what you are. Anandadhyeva khalu imani bhutani jayante anandena jatani jivanti. What is that freedom? What is that bliss that we have? A bit of understanding of that will help us to see that how human being has the freedom and human being has the feeling of happiness within. Just feeling, in English we call it as feeling, but in Sanskrit we have a beautiful word called as bhava. We have this bhava which is subtler than the intellect. Intellect is one level 5, that's what is vijnana. But beyond that intellect, we have this bhava. And the bhava makes us feel that blissful state, happy state. Bhava makes us feel that we have that freedom. So therefore, this Anandam Brahma Kam Brahmaheti, Upanishad puts it. You have experienced that. The student experiences that. When he makes that inquiry, he experiences. The moment he experiences that he is the bliss and he is total freedom, he just stays there in that state of freedom. Why? Because it's not the bookish knowledge that he has, but it is based on his experience. Unfortunately, what happens? This dialogue between the student and teacher, as I said, essentially is based on experience. That's why teacher every time says that tapasa brahma vijnasasva. Go and find out for yourself and tell me. Many times it appears the teacher is cruel because he doesn't give an answer himself. Why does it have to give the answer? Why does he have to say that you find out for yourself? That knowing that, finding out that your nature inside is the freedom, your nature inside is the happiness, bliss, it should come out of your own experience. That means to say each one of us, we have to make our own journey. We have to make our own feeling inside. We have to have that bhava within ourselves. That's why this particular inquiry that is going on in the Panchakosha form in Taittiriya Upanishad also is known as Upasana Krama. Upasana means basically the sadhana that we do it, the practice that we do it. The teacher the Upanishad very easily puts it that Annamaya Kosha, then afterwards Paramaya Kosha. All right, he has given the idea, but then just don't go with that idea alone, but try to feel in your experience. Is it not that your experience that your hand doesn't move by itself? It moves because of the prana behind it. Your legs do not move because the legs are there, but legs are movement is created in the legs because of the prana behind it. Let's try to feel it. Let's try to experience it. Anubhavamiti Shastram. The Shastra says that you need to experience that. In that way, deep inside our consciousness itself is the freedom, itself is the bliss. That's what we are. So, a human being is the one person that who is in this five different layers. I mean, in Taittiriya Upanishad gives 5 layers, but we may have many different layers. It doesn't matter. But then on one end of the layer is our physical body. On the end, physical body is the one which comes across, which it gets in touch with the world outside. Your eyes can see the world outside. Your ears, your nose can interact with the world outside. Sparsha, the touching sense, interacts with the world out. But deep inside that you are that consciousness. You are that Anandamaya Kosha. You are bliss personality. So a human being is the only species who has this 5 different levels. Not only that, that he is also aware. He is aware that he can be blissful inside, and he can also identify himself with the body. The children, to start with, look at them that they are so blissful, they're happy, they're joyful. Any activity they do with that joy that they do it. They don't have any disturbances at all. They were identifying themselves with the Anandamaya Kosha. Physical body is there only when absolutely necessary, they come to the body level, other they don't come to the body level. So therefore, essentially, that when we were born, we were also like that. The physical body, we were blissful personality within, coming to the body when it is absolutely necessary, using the prana where it is necessary, mind, intellect, and all that when it is absolutely necessary. Otherwise, we would not use it. But as we have grown up, we have come away from that identification with that blissful personality. Therefore, what happens? We are so much caught up in the world outside that we don't have not only that experience of bliss all the time, but we don't even agree with that idea that we are the blissful personality. We only think that, yeah, Rishi said, therefore that I say it, I repeat it. So this is an unfortunate development that has taken place with the human being. Though he is the bliss personality, but he's identified with the world outside. In fact, this is the way Patanjali also talks about yoga. Whatever the way Upanishad understands about Panchakosha, forget about all the intermediate steps. But Patanjali puts it very beautifully, saying that the vrittis identify you with the world outside. Vritti sarupya mitaratraha. Whereas yoga is a vritti nirodha. Tatha drashtuhu swarupi avasthanam. Your swarupa is supposed to be ananda. Swarupa is supposed to be the freedom, bliss, and that's what is the state you identify with. So yoga will take you to that journey where you identify yourself with that. All intermediate steps, intermediate stages are not really important. Or maybe many times what happens is that the intermediate steps can really pull you down. In fact, it's very, very important to understand that how the intermediate stages, steps that are there, can really spoil you. And what Patanjali has given us, that you identify yourself with bliss personality, de-identify from the body level, that our sages have said that there are certain material which also gives us that. Patanjali also says that there are influences or certain things will make you to feel that you are free from the physical body identification, that you go inwards, you go deep inside. Yatha Vimata Dhyanatva, Patanjali says in one of the sutras, that's something that you really love, like. You're enjoying maybe a beautiful music program. You just forget about all other things that are there outside, but then you identify yourself with the blissful personality experience. That's why many times when you come out of it, you say that, yeah, I was so blissful, I didn't know how the time passed away. And particularly children have that kind of an influence. Like when you are playing with the children, lovely, happily, and that those people that they identify themselves with that blissful state, that they forget time moving. Mothers say that, I don't know how the time went away, but there's already 1 year over. The child is born. It's already second year birthday of the child. You don't even realize that time flies. That means to say something like a time measure is out of your mind. You're not identified with that. It belongs to the world outside. So therefore, what happens is that you are identified with this deep inside your spiritual nature. It's supposed to be bliss, freedom within you. And this is the greatest possibility of human being, the species. No other species can do that. That's why poetically that our scriptures, our Sanatana Dharma says, even the gods want to have a liberation, they have to take the birth as human being to see that they get liberated. Because this is supposed to be a bhumi where it's a sadhana bhumi, sadhana place, that you need to do this sadhana. You need to grow in this place. But even the gods do not have that. That's only a poetic way of expression. Let me try to explain about what are this concept of gods. Later on, how our people have come to this idea. Because that we have the personality at all these levels and we understand that, we realize that we are blissful, and we also know that even the species have that blissful personality within them because their consciousness. Only thing is that they are not aware of it. They don't know about that. It's for you to create that responsibility, for you to see that they also enjoy that blissful state of personality. That's the reason why we need to protect the animals, we need to protect the plants, make the plants feel blissful, make the animals feel blissful. This is what is ahimsa. Ahimsa does not mean anything other than that. Can you make that whatever species that are there, animals that are there, and the birds that are there, make them feel happy, blissful? In fact, it's not difficult at all. Like a bird comes to your window, kitchen window, that you feed him a piece of bread. Second day comes again, third day comes again. Every day you feed. What is the big thing about feeding a bread? And I've seen in one case where they take the bird immediately catches that bread and then goes somewhere. And the lady was watching, what is that doing? He takes that piece of bread and then puts it into the water, soaks it, and then eats it. Then she thought that, can I not provide water here itself? So next day onwards, she provided a small little vessel where the water is there and the bird is there. You know what happened? That little bird that was there brought his friends, couple of them. They all came. Now they all picked up the bread, dipped in the water, and then drink. Take it. Hare, that means you make them life lovely, happy, blissful. Then she thought that why only keep water there, let me keep milk. And then she started putting milk. You can see that the bird enjoying it. Birds come to you every day in the morning, exactly at the same time. They understand what is bliss. They know to be in the blissful state. That's what is the state of consciousness. But they are not aware of it. And then you can provide that small little simple way that you can make it this happen. That's how people traditionally that they have made this kind of a thing that you provide food outside your plate so that the insects will take it. Where the hole for the ants is there, you put some sugar, you put some jaggery so that let them eat. Whereas we are so cultured these days that we don't put jaggery there, we put the poison so that they die. Many times I wonder, are we really progressing? So this itself is a simple idea saying that I am better species than the other species gives you responsibility to just take care of those species. Not only in the species, but if I'm grown up and a child is a child, I need to take care of that child because I'm grown up. It gives a responsibility. I have my senses intact, but I see somebody who does not have the senses intact. For some various reasons, he has not developed senses. It becomes my responsibility. Somebody is blind, it becomes my obvious responsibility to see that that blind man is provided responsible, taken care of. This comes in Ramayana. The moment that you have all your senses intact, intellect intact, it gives you additional responsibility for you, not ego. These are not the points of ego. So we can organize the nature, we can organize the rivers, we can organize the mountains, forests, animals, including we can also organize human beings, other human beings that we can organize. That's why there is a beautiful prayer that Indian philosophy says that give me that ability that I can help somebody else. Not that I demand from somebody else, but I can give somebody else some help, some kind of a thing. Make me feel that way. What a wonderful way to recognize that you are the species who have higher knowledge, higher education, is the way that you do it. It doesn't require any particular idea of philosophy or religion to talk about it. It's a simple human sense. And the moment that in some any other region, any other reason, I disturb somebody's peace, somebody's harmony, another species, I create a problem for that. Am I human being? Am I becoming inhuman? Whatever may be the great achievements I have, but the moment that I put somebody else into suffering, trouble, for the simple reason that I have a faith, I have a belief system, which means basically that should I trouble the other human being or should I shun my belief system? It's after all your belief. So therefore that becoming more and more human is the responsibility of a human being. And it's the responsibility as an indication to show that you are deep inside the human consciousness. When you take care of other species, not only the species, I have to think of the whole creation where if I'm polluting a river or if I'm destroying the hill or if I'm cutting the plants, in all these cases, I should look behind to say that is there a way that I can avoid doing all those things because I'm responsible for all those things. So this is the way that we look at it. Can we organize ourselves in such a way that we take care of nature and we take care of the plants, we take care of animals, rivers, mountains, forests, all these things. And not only that, including the fellow human being. Apart from that, human being is also something which is extraordinary because of another reason that is there. Human being is the only species which can go from known to unknown to unknowable because that he has a power of inquiry. And more than that, he has a feeling within himself. Bhava takes him to go ahead. He has a scope compared to all the other species. Only the human being has a scope from known to unknown to unknowable. This is what Sanatana Dharma always recognized, always talked about it. Let's try to look at it next time when we meet. Thank you. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.